This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims. It's hard for us here to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact.
Welcome to episode 39 of the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category and break it down into the good, the bad, and sometimes the downright confusing. We'll talk about the plot, some production details, and anything else we think is relevant and or fun. I'm your host Sheldon, and much like the most successful zombies in the undead business, I never work alone. Please say hello to a guy that spends a lot of time barricaded in a basement for non-zombie related reasons, my co-host Mike.
Hey everybody, and if the correct answer is, I have nosy parents.
So, Mike, I think we should start this episode by explaining to everyone what our plans are for this month.
It's another theme month!
Yay!
And this one is the March of the Dead.
Yes, so a little information about what we've got planned for the month of March. So like you just heard Mike say, we're calling the every episode we're doing for March of the Dead, because as most people know, at least if you're a horror fan, we lost George Romero in July of last year to lung cancer. I think it's safe to call him an icon and pioneer in the horror genre, don't you?
Absolutely. He blazed a trail and influenced so many people that in turn influenced other people. He was like the first domino that really took horror in a new direction, particularly a gory one.
Yeah. So when we got the news of his death, of course, our first reaction was to do a tribute to him on the show. The problem was, at the time, we had been doing the show for about 1 month. Not long at all. So we felt that it would seem like we were trying to use his death to attract listeners to our show.
We hadn't earned the right to address the master in such a familiar way.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right. You couple that with the fact that pretty much every horror movie podcast and horror-based YouTube channel, even every TV channel, was doing a tribute to Mr. Romero. So we talked about it, and we decided to hold off, and almost immediately we came up with our idea for a tribute. So we've been sitting on this for quite some time. We've been looking forward to doing it, and it's finally here.
We just needed the right month to come along so that we could punt our way into it.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what we decided to do. Mike, why don't you tell everybody what March of the Dead is going to be all about?
Well, we're doing the films of Romero, and we're kicking it off with the classic, the beginner, the penultimate Night of the Living Dead.
That's right. For each week in March, we are going to be covering a different film from George Romero's Dead series. Because before you guys say anything, and I know you guys will, we are quite aware that George Romero was known for more than just that. He had a lot of other notable films under his belt, like Martin, Creepshow, which he did with Stephen King, and it's fucking amazing, The Crazies, Monkey Shines, and I can go on, but I don't think anyone can dispute that the Dead series was his best, or at least his most influential work. I mean, he is known as the grandfather of the zombie, and since it kind of fit the theme, March of the Dead, that's how it all came about, we decided we'll cover the first 4 films in the Dead series.
Yeah, because it's not like he really pioneered the psychotic helper monkey trope that we see in so many movies and TV shows and comic books and cartoons.
Yeah, that wasn't a subgenre that caught on. So, Mike, how about you give our listeners a little info on the late, great George Romero?
Well, our esteemed Mr. Romero was born in the New York City borough of the Bronx, the son of Anne Dvorsky and George Romero, a commercial artist. His mom was Lithuanian and his father moved from Spain to Cuba as a child. Raised in the Bronx, he would ride the subway into Manhattan to rent film reels to view at his house. So this man had a taste for film right off the bat. And after graduating college in 1960, he began shooting short films and commercials. And one of his earliest commercial films was a segment from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, in which Mr. Rogers underwent a tonsillectomy. So with 9 friends, Romero formed Image 10 Productions in the 1960s and produced Night of the Living Dead, directed by him and co-written with John A. Russo. This movie became a defining moment for modern horror cinema.
Mm-hmm. And of course, since you already mentioned it, if we're going to cover the Dead series, where else will we start? But with the original Night of the Living Dead. Of course, and like Mike just said, released in 1968, Night of the Living Dead is an independent zombie horror film directed, shot, and edited by Mr. Romero, co-written by John Russo. It had a budget of $114,000, which was quite the feat to raise in 1968 for an independent movie. And get this, it had a box office return of approximately $30 million. That is more than 150 times its budget.
Wow. Did he see any of that, though, or did he lose it because it went into public domain?
I'm not sure. Like, that's a good question, because I heard some stories about Night of the Living Dead. Like, it went into public domain pretty early.
Yeah, because he fucked up and forgot to put the production company's titles on the film reel itself.
Yeah.
So when it was logged in, it was just like a public domain film.
Yeah.
And
so
this is like that guy that made Tetris. But he's like, sorry, you live in communist Russia. You ain't seeing a fucking ruble.
Yeah, exactly. So Night of the Living Dead has a 96% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and an audience score of 87%. So pretty high ratings from both. As for the plot, if you're one of those people that's been living under a rock for the past 50 years, 7 people barricade themselves in an old farmhouse in an attempt to remain safe from a growing number of undead flesh-eating ghouls. And I had to enter this in my notes just because I thought this was pretty cool. Though this film was highly criticized upon its release for its explicit gore, as apparently in 1968 this movie was considered gory, it eventually received critical acclaim and, get this, was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry as a film deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. That is some damn high praise right there.
Oh, yeah. And the cool thing is that even if you don't have YouTube, you can actually see the whole movie on the Wikipedia article because it's in public domain, and that's awesome.
Yes.
If you just want to say, like, I'm so hip, I saw this movie on Wikipedia.
That's right. Like, Wikipedia actually supplies it to you. Okay. So, yeah, this one, wow. Like, the influence that this movie had on the horror genre is huge. Very few films have had such significant input into a genre as this movie did. And personally, I cannot wait to talk about this one. So, let's get started. Let's do it. What we're going to do is talk about the good and bad points involving this movie, and this is where we get to be as specific or as general as we want. If we like or dislike an overall theme, story, certain scene, certain line of dialogue, whatever, all are valid talking points, and as always, we're going to start with the good. So, Mike, after, we've seen this movie before, but we've watched it recently, it's fresh in our minds. Tell me something you enjoyed about this one.
Haunting music and subdued credits. Mm-hmm. It's just got a good opening. It plays it nice and subtle, but still, like, the credit stands out. Like, the word night is, like, big and bold, And then, like, in smaller words, of the living dead.
That's right. Had a feeling you were going to mention something like that. The music as well, very mood setting. Like, really loved how that flowed. So yeah, credits and music. That's a good way to start off because that's what you get right off the bat. So great place to start. So I'm going to go with something very broad for my first good point. Just the story itself. I mean, being barricaded away from zombie hordes is something that has been done a lot in movies over the years. I'd even go as far as saying that it's been done too much. But this was the first to do it like this. This was the beginning of a very popular zombie movie trope. Besides that, they did a great job of creating a nice tense atmosphere. This feeling of impending doom hanging over the heads of the characters and being amplified by the squabbling between all the main cast. It really made their situation so much worse with their infighting. So that's my first good point. An overall story, that's important because if a movie story is no good, then anything else it has to offer is just not going to cut it. And it was something different because stories leading up to this that involve like something, a house or some building like a castle that involves something sinister, it was always like something like Dracula where the evil is inside the house and people, make their way into the house and that's where the danger is. This time the danger is outside and people are trying to keep it out. So at the time, like, that was something fresh. They kind of flipped the script on like the way that most horror movies went. So points to them. Okay, tell me something else good about this.
I also enjoyed the bickering, particularly in my entry with the siblings bickering at the grave. With the brother who I just called Mobile Steve Hawking. And the way he's just pondering the grift of styro crosses, like they're never there, no matter how many, like they always leave one a year, and yet they never pile up. And he's wondering, do you think that we're buying the same one over and over again?
Yes, I love that. How many times have we bought the same one? That was a good point. Like that's true.
It was good small talk.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Very often in horror movies, like they'll have dialogue which just fills time between scares, and even in this movie, I feel like that is present. But at least in the beginning, we've got some nice banter between these two.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Okay, next on my list, this is something that has been a big conversation point with a lot of people about this movie. But for the good, I have casting a black man in the lead role of a movie in 1968.
Damn it! You're stealing my stuff again. Because Ben is my next like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that both of us wrote this down because this was pretty much unheard of. As, at the time, racism was still very rampant in America. And, I mean, I guess it's still is, depending on who you talk to.
Somehow worse than today.
Yeah. But this was very significant. A lot of people thought that Romero actually hired Dwayne Jones to play the lead character Ben as a social statement on equality. But Romero has always insisted that it had nothing to do with that. He said that in the script, it didn't state what race any of the characters were. They just had general descriptions. And Jones got the part because he was the best actor that auditioned for the role. Yeah, and to be honest, that kind of makes it even more significant when it comes to the topic of equality. Just because, they went with Jones not because of some type of agenda, but just simply because they felt he was the best guy for the job.
But it became significant because it was made in mid-60s America. From the beginning, the middle, and even his end, it's all very... Like, that's a reason why it would be in the Library of Congress, because although unintentional, it was still massively culturally significant.
Yes. Okay. So what else do you have? Since you can go on to your next point, since I stole.
Well, you talked more about Jones. I'm talking more about Ben. Like, he's just
Okay.
an intelligent, savvy person and a real survivor. Like, if the shit hit the fan, I would gladly have this guy in my corner. Like,
Yeah.
I know if I stick by him, I'm surviving.
Yeah. No nonsense. Do what needs to be done.
And my final like is just the radio. It's like with these people being isolated and cut off from the world, and the zombies sure as hell aren't telling you what's going on. It's their only link to the rest of the world to know, like, is it just this area, just this city, just this country? So the radio provides in amazing detail. It's a great way to save on special effects too, rather than showing you like more hordes of zombies all across different landscapes. They just tell you, oh no, it's happening on different landscapes.
Yeah.
Just so that you can hear that it's happening in New York and in Philadelphia and in Texas, but you don't have to actually film Philadelphia or Texas.
Right.
So it's a money saving device, an exposition tool. And it also gave a nice sense of foreboding and dread to let you know that, like, even if they did make it out of that farm, where would they go that's safe? Is there safe anymore?
Right. No, it's funny that you mentioned that, because actually I had it on a list for the good was the radio broadcasts playing over a lot of scenes, because I noticed that some of the scenes you're watching, like, literally for a couple minutes straight, you're watching Ben just nail boards to a wall.
Yeah,
Like, that's all you're seeing. You're seeing him pick up boards, come over and nail them across doors and windows.
And she comes along with a tiny little piece of firewood, like, this will secure the door, right?
And but no, the radio was good, because even though you're like, it made it feel so real to me, because you're watching it, he's just barricading the door, nailing these boards, but the radio is giving all the exposition you need. It's talking about what's happening. It's just laying over it. You're getting so much like story filled in because of the radio broadcast is playing over these scenes. And I was like, that's actually pretty clever. And I know a lot of it, like you said, they're not showing a lot of hordes, like, all over the place, different settings, because they did have limited money and time to make this movie. But the radio did it nicely. Like, it actually set the atmosphere very nicely. So, yeah, it is very significant for sure. Kind of like to the scene when they get the TV set up and you start watching some of the TV broadcasts.
Yeah. It was nice, although the TV was kind of like repetitive and not helpful in a lot of what it said. It's just a guy saying, "Yep, there's people, and some of them are dead." Yep.
Yeah. Which leads me to the next thing I had on the good list was the first thing that they see on TV when they're getting a news report where the reporters are following the general. The Army general, and they're in Washington. You see him in front of the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. George Romero is actually in the scene. He's one of the reporters. And when I researched the scene, I found some information that they actually filmed it in Washington in front of the Washington Monument. They actually did not get a permit to film there. They showed up with the actors and the crew. Film that scene that's the reason why the film is that scene is all one long take.
Because they're looking out for the guards.
Yep, they're just like, start filming, we'll start walking. You guys start filming, we'll start walking and saying our lines, and you just like keep ahead of us.
And watch out for the military police.
Apparently, they stopped there. They got loaded everything out of their vehicles. They filmed that scene, popped everything back in, and then took off as quickly as they could. Imagine getting, like, security busting him or something, where you got a guy, like, dressed as a U.S. Army general.
That's probably what confused them at first. They're just like, okay, there's some assholes. Wait, is that one of ours?
Yeah. Or imagine just being somebody, like, there visiting, like a tourist there, and seeing, like, these reporters following these Army generals, and he's talking about, a satellite from Venus or crashing and people coming back from the dead. This could have been like a whole, like, another War of the Worlds panic or something. So, yeah. So, did you have anything else on your good list?
No, I'm done.
Okay, so one more thing I got to put on the list. The zombies. They didn't call them zombies in this movie, they called them ghouls, but it was the first time we saw what would become the modern movie zombie. These are the zombies, eventually became the zombies that we know today. The reanimated corpse slowly shuffles, craves living flesh, infects and transforms people that get bitten, can only be killed by destroying the brain. These are all the things that have continued to be part of zombie movie lore since this movie's release. Movie zombies before this were the black magic voodoo type, so really they created a brand new type of creature for this movie. And that's pretty awesome. Okay, so, I could go on talking about the atmosphere, certain scenes and everything like that, but you know what? This movie is probably one of the easiest movies to find, to watch, so just go watch it and you'll see all the good points.
Yeah, the tension between people as panic and paranoia and distrust threaten to tear them apart more than the zombies waiting outside to literally tear them apart.
Exactly. Like, the living people, they were all their own worst enemies in this movie. They had a solid, they could have survived, but they, once again, no matter, you get a group of people together, there's going to be some kind of power struggle. So,
unless you're Tom and Judith, in which case you're just a bunch of well-meaning dum-dums.
Yes. So, speaking of dum-dums, I guess it's time to get to the bad. Because while this movie, I really do fully believe, I give it all kinds of praise, I fully think it completely deserves all the praise it gets, it is certainly not without its flaws. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the bad. And since you started off with the good, how about I start off with the bad?
Sure.
Okay. The first thing I got on my list, the acting. For the most part, it wasn't great. A lot of the cast had some rough edges. Some of the lines were delivered kind of poorly. And I mean, that's not uncommon for a low-budget independent movie, especially at the time. It's not like a production like this was going to attract any A-listers. And I don't mean all of it was bad. Some people did a great job. I think Dwayne Jones was probably the best actor of the bunch. And I mean, you got to give some people, some leniency too, because some of them weren't even actors. I mean, I can't even remember some characters, but Cooper and his wife.
Cooper was basically like Red Foreman from that 70s show.
Yeah. And his wife, the actress that played his wife, she was an actor. She was actually the receptionist that worked for George Romero's company. And they said, hey, they needed somebody to fill a role, and he asked her if she wanted to try out. She did, and he said, okay, you know what, that was good enough. You're in.
By the way, can you get naked?
Yes, then there's that. I didn't know that, but we'll talk about that later. So I mean, I'm not faulting anybody. I mean, they worked with what they had, and like I said, this was not a big budget or anything like this, and this was a very experimental film. But yeah, the acting in this, even the good actors, they're not going to be blowing anyone away with their talent.
Well, except for Dwayne. I bought him every time I saw him. Everyone else seemed like you couldn't really conceive of them acting like this in this situation. At least not as long as they did. Even if you're in a bad situation, you adjust to it to survive. These people, they were like one gimmick, and they stuck with it until their bitter end.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so what's the first thing you have for the bad?
My first bad was just the graveyard zombie. He shows, way too much emotion for a corpse. He's not trying to eat Johnny. He just, throws him to the ground and then, ignores him to follow her. He's more obsessed with murder than meal.
He reminds me more of some, homeless people I've encountered downtown.
Some bath salts, guys, and there you go.
Exactly.
And then he used a rock to get into the car. Zombies using weapons? Clearly Romero was, still figuring out the mythos he was starting. So I'm not going to grouse too much but it is a rough start.
Yeah, it was. Like, it certainly that was, like I said, these were what would become modern zombies, but there was still some things that, like, they kind of, in the other films in the series, they kind of, like, weeded out a little bit, because I guess it was something new. They didn't quite know what type of direction they were going to take it. So, yeah, I always found that watching it now, like, especially after being so familiar with the series, like, that always looked a little strange when you see him pick up the rock and start smashing out the car window.
Yeah, it's like, wait a second, this is thought. His brain is supposed to be like, eat, that's it.
Yeah.
So, like, that's, I gotta call him out for being way too dynamic for a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
Or, sorry, a ghoul, if we're going to use the term.
Ooh, that's right. Okay, so next I have for the bad, the editing. Man, at times, some of the editing in this movie.
Oh, you mean where a girl is facing Ben and then a split second later she's turned away from him while talking to somebody?
Cooper, that's the exact same scene. Cooper, like, rotates, like, 45 degrees in, like, a fraction of a second. Like, it's like they didn't even, like, attempt to make it, to, like, put a scene in there. But anyway, like, yeah, the editing was bad. Like, that was certainly one of the highlights. Some scenes you'll notice, like, it's nighttime. All of a sudden, it looks like it's daylight. Then it's nighttime again. The first zombie you see, you mention him, and holy crap, the first time you see him, he covers a huge amount of distance in a short amount of time.
Yeah, like I said, he's a supercharged zombie.
Yeah, but I mean, there's one thing to be like, hey, that zombie's kind of fast, too. Like, holy shit, that guy must have sprinted across the cemetery when the camera wasn't facing him.
Yeah, he's like a good 30 feet away, and then he's up in Johnny's grill.
Yeah.
Or Barbara's grill, when Johnny's just like, oh shit, I guess I gotta go rescue my sister.
Like, it was almost like a Doctor Who weeping angel for a moment. And then there's things that disappear and reappear from shot to shot, like zombies, furniture, a couple of scenes, even Barbara's shoes. She's doesn't have shoes, then she has shoes, then there are no shoes. Some of the audio editing, there had some problems. Like, some of the sound effects don't sync up with the actors, like the actions that are being performed on screen. I especially liked one scene in particular where you're getting a close-up of Ben hammering some nails, but, like, you actually hear the sound of the hammer connecting with the nail when he pulls the hammer back. Like, I don't think anybody even tried to sync those sounds up. So, yeah, be prepared. If you haven't seen this and you watch it, yeah, you're going to see some masterful editing in some places.
And it's also shitty ADR, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that is terrible. That's terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah. So, okay, what do you got next for the bad?
Barbara.
Oh, fuck yeah.
As I like to call her, shell-shocked Tilda Swinton.
Yep.
Who I would definitely kill or at least throw out if I was stuck with. This is a liability in a dress.
Yeah. I'd be like, hey, how about while we take care of all of this stuff, you just, like, sit in this closet?
And just make sure to stare as if someone whacked you in the skull with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put the birds and the stars in post.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's people, like, they get into a high stress situation like this and they kind of go catatonic, but man,
yeah,
I don't know.
And those types of people are fodder. They're distractions so that I may survive.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, after all of that, she doesn't even survive to the end.
No, she doesn't gain any. She doesn't develop as a character. I mean, like this. Like, I don't know if Romero himself was a misogynist or if, like, Russo, who also co-wrote this movie, if he was the misogynist. But you know, they just thought, we're gonna have a useless woman in here, and guys are gonna be like trying to save her or help her, and then we're gonna kill her anyway.
Yeah, as progressive as this movie was for the time, I still think they kind of got stuck with that, you know, the old trope of, like, the hysterical or useless female character. Which is kind of a shame because, I mean, as this story progresses, the female characters do get much stronger and better written.
Yeah, well, Cooper's wife does.
Yeah, but what I mean is not in this movie, but like the other movies in the series.
Oh yeah, because Cooper's wife seems to be kind of assertive and strong, like standing up to her paranoid husband. But then she just wilts before the terrible power of a slow-moving wounded child.
Yeah. Like, you know what? I'm sorry. This makes me sound like an asshole. I don't care if it's my kid or not. He turns into a zombie and starts coming after me with a freaking trowel. I'm gonna drop kick his ass.
Yeah. It's like, sorry, I love you, but, you're obviously just like a disease wearing my child's face.
Yeah,
and you're getting a boot to the face.
I'll mourn you later. Right now, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. I'll mourn you after I double kill you.
Yeah. Okay, so did you have anything else for the bad?
Cooper's a fucking asshole and I hate him.
He sure is. Glad we agreed there.
What about you? Any more bads?
No, that pretty much covered it. Like, I had a lot of the acting, the editing, and Barbara for the most part. Yeah, and I have to agree too. I almost put on the list, but I just kind of forgot about it afterwards that Cooper's wife, she was a much stronger female character, but they kind of pushed out on her character at the end. So yeah, not great. Okay, so if we got nothing else bad to say about this, I guess we're going to go with what I think is safe to call your favorite category.
Yeah.
You seem to be a lot more enthusiastic about it than I am, but the little category that we have inserted when there's a call for it, called the What the Fuck category. The category where we talk about anything in a film that left us completely confused, baffled, and literally made us say, what the fuck?
Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know what you got for the your WTF, but mine is the zombies peacefully lining up to get some Tom and Judy. Like, they weren't like single file, but they were gracious enough to let each other go one at a time after it is Tom and Judy, right? I've got the characters' names right.
Yep, and another thing, that truck was on fire. Like, again, okay, what the fuck? The car blew up. The truck blew up because, I guess trucks were just poorly designed. I guess Pinto saw this movie and thought, wow, it would be great if we could do that with a car.
Yeah.
So, and the car was on fire. We established the zombies are afraid of fire, and then they walk up to a burning truck and pull out Tom and Judy chunks.
Yeah. One by one, too. That's what got me. It was like, yeah, it's a good point that, this whole thing is ablaze, which you established. I mean, the whole reason they even got out of the house to get to the truck, to try to make it to the gas pump, was that they figured out that the zombies were afraid of fire. But they had no problem, going to this still burning truck and pulling out, going for the Tom and Judy buffet. And like I said, one by one.
The Tom and Judy briquettes.
Yeah, they go by, they grab a chunk, then they turn around and leave, then the next one grabs a chunk, and just repeat.
The Tom and Judy bread line.
Yeah, so I always thought that was weird. That seemed just so odd that the zombies behave that way. Okay, did you have anything else for this category?
Yeah, and also Tom, he should have, as soon as he saw the fire, he should have got a good 10 feet away from the truck and just be like, well, if you're stuck, unstick yourself. But I'm not going to risk getting blown up with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a young, handsome man. I can get another girl.
Jesus Christ.
And maybe one that knows how to not get stuck inside a car. But anyways, my what the fuck is about the ghouls. Why did they smash Ben's car? They stand outside, he scares them off with a bit of fire, and then I guess they take out their frustration on him for starving them by picking up rocks and smashing the lights out of his car.
Yeah. Well, you didn't know that. That was part of, one of the common characteristics of a zombie. There's, can only be killed by destroying the brain, will eat human flesh, afraid of fire, and has no problem resorting to petty vandalism.
Yeah. Bricks are a zombie's best friend.
Mm-hmm. Obviously. Yeah, that is definitely that. And it's just so weird. Like, I know, like, we already mentioned it. We're seeing the beginnings of what would eventually become the modern zombie. There were still some things that they wanted to smooth out. They didn't quite know what kind of direction they're going to take it. But after, decades and decades of zombie culture, seeing it on the screen, on TV even, it seems so weird to see a zombie do something like that.
It would be like watching Dracula walk up to a girl and like chomp on her neck repeatedly and make like noises when he does it. Like if you saw the first vampire movie and he did that, you'd be like, how the fuck did we get here from there?
Yeah. Or like, I'm going to sneak into this lady's window and suck her blood, bite her neck, make her an undead bride. But first, I'm going to paint like a nice graffiti tag on the side of her house.
I'm going to paint a pentagram just to let her know, like, the son of the devil was here.
Yeah. So, no, I totally agree. Okay, did you have anything else for this category?
No, I am now what the fuckless.
Good one. Okay, well, Mike, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, sometimes I can kind of figure out what you're going to have to say. Sometimes I have no clue. This is going to definitely be the latter because I have no clue what you're going to pick for your segment this week.
Yep, it's a wonderful black and white wonderland on this week's Kill of the Week. I kind of don't want to give it up to Barb because, I mean, like, it's good that she's gone, but, again, like, it's such a stupid way to die. Like, it's like, she's so annoying that even her death makes me annoyed at her. Like, oh no, that's my brother. He's part of the horde. I gotta go get to him. Please eat me, please. So, like, that is just too stupid to earn my respect. And then there's the poignancy in Ben getting killed by the same posse who is out killing zombies, and without even questioning why would a zombie be holding a gun, they just plant one right between the eyes. And when he says, yeah, you got one, I don't even know if he meant like a ghoul or not, because this is the South.
It was the South in the 60s, so...
When he plants one right between the eyes, he doesn't even bother asking, that black gentleman is holding a weapon. Maybe we should wave to him and try to, make contact with him. And the guy would be like, make contact with a black man? I mean, come on.
But don't you know, it's like that's the only way to make sure everyone is safe is that if everybody has guns, they're in large parties in a stressful situation.
Yeah, if there's like a bad guy with a gun, you need a good guy with a gun.
Of course. Okay, so you established not Barbara, not Ben. Okay, so no. I have no idea what
the strongest sense of justice with me is Cooper getting his by Ben.
Yes.
He's been a disruptive cunt this whole friggin' time. He has just been antagonistic. He has been not helpful. He betrayed Ben by, like, hesitating to let him in. And who knows why? Is it because he's threatened by a man who knows what he's doing? Is he just like another racist asshole thinking, like, I'm not going to let one of those people protect me or make me look bad? Whatever his reasons... He finally goes too far when the zombies finally make their move, and Ben makes it clear in no uncertain terms, you have outlived your usefulness. And he just pegs him with a shotgun and sends him down the stairs as he limps. I mean, like, you'd think for a shotgun wound he'd be a little bit more bloody. Like we'd get some gore or a squib or something. But he ends up limping towards his daughter, and... the daughter wakes up and immediately eats Daddy. So
yes.
Whether he succumbed to his shotgun wound or like bled out while she ate his arm off, I don't know, but the fucker deserved it.
Yes. Oh, okay. Good one. I'm very happy with that pick. Yes.
And we're just about done in good time.
Yeah, really.
So an interesting thing about this was that, Romero did want to use the word zombie. Like, he's known for not using the word zombie, but, he tried. but difficulties beyond his control led him to be a little bit more creative. And we found this because we managed to go through the old archives, the congressional archives, and although the movie is available in one piece, if you look a little harder, you'll find a directorial piece acquired during principal shooting, which didn't make it into the finished product, but it does shine a light on this week's It Came from the Cutting Room Floor. Okay, everybody. Welcome to Zombie Training. We start filming tomorrow and we need to get this down pat. Over the next few hours, you will all learn how to look, act, and sound like zombies. Before we start, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what's a zombie?
A zombie. One of them slave workers with no will of its own.
Oh, like that movie, White Zombie.
Exactly. No. We got a new type of zombie. You see, in this picture, a zombie is going to be a dead person returned from the grave. I think it's something that could really catch on.
Oh, so like a ghost. I can be a ghost. Woo, I'm a ghost. I'm scary.
If we're gonna be ghosts, we should get wardrobe like some chains and sheets. They're not ghosts. Look, you are reanimated corpses that shamble along and eat the flesh of the living.
Oh, hey, you should make them drink blood like a vampire.
They're not being vampires. They are zombies.
Oh, who's going to be the zombie master? Like the leader of the zombies.
There's no zombie master, okay? They're not that type. All right, okay, listen. We won't call them zombies. We'll never call them zombies. They're, ghouls. That's it, ghouls. Now, let's work on the walk and the sounds. Now, everybody walk towards me, shamble, and moan. Ooh. Oh, no. Slowly shuffle and moan, like this. Now you try. Okay, who made a goat noise?
I think it was that goat.
Why is there a goat here?
Well, we are on a farm.
You know what? Forget it. No training. Just fucking walk around and grab at the main cast when they're near you. We'll put the sounds in post. Jeez, this movie will never be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Wow, the struggles of a director. First Christian Nibby, then this guy.
Yeah, really. Well, I'm glad, the term zombie eventually evolved into something a little more common for when we got the next entry in the series. So, can't wait to talk about that one next week.
Or and if it wasn't brought in by Romero, then it would have eventually been brought in by the Cranberries.
Yes, I guess so. Okay, so Mike, there's something about this movie that's been a debate for a very long time, and we got to talk about it here since we're talking about this movie. We got to bring it up. Okay, so the main problem, I don't want to say problem, but one of the other than the whole zombie attack, one of the driving points in this movie was the arguments between the people barricaded in the house. We've got Ben, who says he wants to barricade everything upstairs, the doors, the windows, but he wants to remain upstairs, so just in case too many zombies show up, they still have an escape route, and they can make a run for it. Now,
or fall back to the cellar.
Or fall back to the cellar eventually. Now, Cooper, his thing is, no, the cellar's secure, let's just go there and lock and just barricade it. There's actually a big debate, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, about who was right in this situation. Now, the end of the movie would kind of point to everyone saying that maybe Cooper was right all along, and everybody should have just went down to the basement and barricaded themselves in. Other people say Ben's plan was great, it's just that they couldn't agree. There was too much squabbling, and end up, with with the Ben and Cooper actually shooting at each other. So
I would say that Ben was right, not just because I hate Cooper, but because with so little of what's going on established, like the TV went out, the radio went out, so they weren't completely informed. Plus, Cooper's an emotional son of a bitch. So I'm sure that if they did go down to the basement, he would have like hugged his daughter the second she died. She would have bit him, and completely unaware that, like, being oblivious, like Ben would be the only one noticing, hey, wait a second, if dead people come back and you just got bit, we got to do something to you. But everyone would be divided and emotional, and they'd be squabbling as Cooper would get infected and then turn on his wife, because, she won't turn on her child. She's not going to turn on her man, who she's probably scared of, because, he looks like a guy that's, made his position of head of the household pretty clear. Yeah. So I imagine that family would still get torn apart by their daughter, with Tom, Judy, and Ben being the sensible ones, while Barbara just sits in a corner staring, and the Cooper family just, eventually gets infected, and now they're evenly matched, like 1 for 1. So there would be a ton of infighting, while the door may eventually get broken down, and they'd have no way to run. So I have a feeling that they were right to stay up in the house, because it held the zombies off long enough, and they would have eventually torn down the door or the walls holding up the door if that posse with the shotguns weren't out there making noise. Mm-hmm. So the door held out just long enough for the posse to arrive, so I believe Ben was right, and Cooper would have gotten everybody killed, just in a different fashion, by getting too close to the daughter and not realizing you got to smash her brains out.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I think you made some good points. My answer to that would be neither one of them was right. They had their best survival instinct, best survival chance, I should say, not instinct, right there in front of them, and nobody even mentioned it. They should have went upstairs, not on the main floor, went upstairs, either destroyed the staircase behind them, or there's lots of furniture upstairs. They could have easily barricaded it. The zombies are not going to be able to get upstairs then. They could have stayed up in the top level of the house and would have been completely fine, and just waited there till they got rescued.
And wave their hands out the window screaming, "Me not zombie, don't shoot."
Exactly. They wasted, and like, I would like to think I would have figured that out, because they had, during the movie, they had gone upstairs for different things. They went upstairs, got things to bring downstairs to barricade the doors and windows. Nobody thought, like, hey, if this staircase is the only way up here, all we gotta do is make sure zombies can't get up this staircase. So nobody thought of that. That baffles me.
Yeah, just like pile up a bunch of wood, like flat up, so that the zombies can't like grab it. And then if they do start piling on, then you just set that shit on fire and burn out the stairs.
Yep.
And make sure to like soak the floor around the stairs so that the fire doesn't spread, of course.
Yeah. Like, either way, even if you've got to find, like, you had hammers with, hooks on the end, try to go down the basement, see if you can find a crowbar and just tear the crap out of the thing, like about midway. So nobody thought of that. It's just, that would have been the best way to do it. And, are you...
Yeah, you wouldn't need a Tom for that, because, he's like the strong guy. He could have done that.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's always been an argument about who was right in this case. Most people do tend to side with Ben, but I've heard a few people have said, like, no, they should have went to the basement right then and there and just barricaded the whole thing.
And those are the people that definitely would have died in the outbreak, because they think they're so smart by being a contrarian little bastard, but
yeah,
they're not.
So I got to see like a little bit, like sort of a what if of what would happen no matter what decision they made. A couple of years ago, me and my wife, we were actually in the audience for Night of the Living Dead Live. Is a stage play, executive produced by George Romero. It was Night of the Living Dead, except done on a stage, and it looked so cool because what they had done, all the scenery, even the actors on the stage, where everything was black and white. Like they had dressed themselves completely in monochrome clothing, makeup on, like grays, blacks, whites, makeup. All the sets were black and white and gray. And they played through the whole thing, like the whole story. But they did it, there was humor at it. Like, it kind of like, not like Evil Dead the musical, but like they did add some humor sort of in that way. And absolutely fantastic. It was so good. In the same year, we saw Evil Dead the musical and Night of the Living Dead Live. My wife actually preferred Night of the Living Dead Live over Evil Dead the musical. It certainly didn't catch on like Evil Dead the musical, though, But as far as I know, just it just played that for that one or a couple of weeks in downtown Toronto, and it was great. But one of the things that I loved was that they played through. They sped it up, of course. It didn't take as long as the movie did, but they played through the scenario like the movie. Then they did some what ifs, and one of the what ifs was, what if they listened to Cooper and decided to barricade themselves in the basement? So you got to see how it played out when they did that, and played out almost like you said, but it started with the daughter dying and the mom getting bitten and getting killed by the daughter, and when they're trying to deal with the daughter, the mom reanimates and starts attacking them. And
it's good that I was vindicated.
Yeah, and then they played a scenario. What about, hey, barricading yourself in a house is not a good idea. Zombies are slow. Let's just make a run for it. And they played that one out. And if I remember correctly, everybody gets killed. They run into the posse wandering in the woods at night and they all get gunned down.
'Cause America.
Yeah. And then they do a few scenarios of different things that they made an attempt and it's
what if we got the Scooby-Doo ending? All the zombies are just all old man Withers.
Oh my god. And then they said, like, well, what about this was a Broadway musical? And they go all into this big musical number
where Barbara just sings all of the beginning of the movie that we've already seen.
But the best was, like, everybody singing, they go into this big musical singing and dancing number, and all of a sudden Ben out of nowhere does this, like, leap spin in the air and lands doing a split. Oh my god, one of the funniest things I ever saw. And one of the great things that he did, because I look for it this time when I was watching this movie, is that you rarely see Judy and Cooper's wife. For some reason I can never remember her name. You rarely see them in any scenes together. And so what they did for Night of the Living Dead Live is the same actress played both those characters. She would literally, like, go off stage and then come back a minute later as, like, the other character.
That is delicious.
So yeah, that was great, and like played out like all the scenarios like that. It was just so good. And they had when we were waiting in line for them to open the doors, they had people, like actors dressed as zombies, just like walking around the outside of the theater. And just such a good time. Like I really wish that it was a production that kept going, because I highly recommend it. If they ever bring it back for any reason, then you really should see it.
Hopefully somebody recorded it, because that sounds like it would be great to watch.
Yeah. And it was weird. I was kind of hoping that maybe Mr. Romero would show up, like, during the production, because they did like a little thing, like, talking about everybody involved.
He looks like Stan Lee, sounds like Stan Lee. Why not do a cameo like Stan Lee?
Exactly. And he was living in Toronto at the time, so that would have been great, but no such luck. But anyway, guys, that is our coverage of the original Night of the Living Dead. I say original because there's also a very popular remake that was done by Tom Savini, directed by Tom Savini in 1990. Did you see that one?
No, I did not.
Check it out. It's good. Good in its own right.
I think this is the only of the Dead series, the only of the Dead movie I've seen.
Oh, shit, really?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of cherry popping for the rest of this month.
Oh, you're in for a treat then, my friend. You got at least a couple of movies coming up that you're really going to enjoy. But I mentioned to some people online, talking to some of our followers on Twitter and Facebook, and we got talking about Night of the Living Dead, the original versus the 1990 remake, and a lot of people actually said that they preferred the remake over the original.
And they all seem to have one thing in common. Barbara actually does something, apparently.
Exactly. Barbara was a much better character. She starts off pretty much the same, but when she flips, she goes full on, like, she reminded me of, like, she almost went through a transformation, almost like Laurie Strode in Halloween, or Ridley in Aliens. Like, she goes.
You're not going to get saved by staring and screaming.
Yeah,
you got to take shit into your own hands.
She goes full on beast mode towards the end, so it's good to see. So yeah, I definitely recommend that one. Check it out. So it raised an interesting point. I wanted to see what people thought, so I actually did a couple of polls, and this is so weird because I'll tell you the results of the Twitter poll first. So just simply put a one-day poll. Which version of Night of the Living Dead do you prefer? 1968 original, 1990 remake. And when the poll closed, we had 65% people saying they preferred the 1968 original, 35 saying the 1990 remake. Now that, like I said, was the Twitter poll. So I did the exact same thing on Facebook, the exact same question, the exact same options. And what do you think the results were for that one?
Drastically different?
Almost the polar opposites, because we had 36% of voters saying that they preferred the 1968 original, 64% saying they enjoyed the 1990 remake better.
Wow.
Almost the exact numbers, but on opposite ends. That is so weird.
It's fantastic.
And everybody
God bless you people on Twitter. You should listen to the show.
Yeah. So most people, there was a lot of people that liked the remake better, said just because, zombies were a little more what we know of zombies today. They looked a little better, more gore, but the biggest thing they said they liked the best was the change to the character of Barbara. They made her a strong character, and so that's good. Well, guys, thank you very much for your input. That is our coverage of the original Night of the Living Dead. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll take a look at the remake and see what we think of that one. But
there's always next March.
Exactly. But we hope you guys enjoyed, and we want to hear from you. What do you think of this episode? What we had to say? Do you agree, disagree? Do you have some points to make? Do you have an argument about who you think was right? Was Ben or Cooper's idea the best? Well, we definitely want to hear what you thought.
Or was Tom the smart guy to just blow yourself up quick and painless and just get out of that situation?
There you go. There's an option as well. But whatever the case is, we want to hear from you, and you got some options of doing that. You can email us the old-fashioned way at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us and follow us on Twitter at GOIS_horrorpod. And you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. And I guess I got to say it because this is pretty recent, but we are on the Instagrams. You know that.
Woohoo, we getting trendy.
Yeah, I tell you, man, we're not old. We're keeping up to date with all you young whippersnappers. But you can check us out there. We are, just check us out at instagram.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. We're just anything that's horror related that happen to interest us, whether it's about one of the movies we're watching. Mike likes to take a lot of screenshots when he's watching a movie, because whenever I don't know when Mike's watching a movie that we're covering for the show, because all of a sudden I'll get into a flood of screenshots and with little captions added to it. So
yep. So you will now be able to go to Instagram.com/ what is it? The Graveyard Shift?
Graveyard Shift Pod.
You just head there and you can see Mike's thoughts with screenshots.
There you go. And anything else that's related to something we've watched, or just even horror related in general that we think is worth sharing, we'll post it up there. And you can go check that out. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you're thinking like, I've got too much money, I'd like to share it with somebody. Well, you can make a donation to the show at www.patreon.com/graveyard. All proceeds go to the upkeep and promotion of the show. And you don't just get a good feeling, that warm feeling in your heart that you're helping out a couple of poor podcasters. You also get some instant gratification because anybody that's a donator, contributor to our Patreon, even if it's just as little as $1 a month, it gives you instant access to some Patreon exclusive content. Each month we throw up a new Patreon exclusive bonus episode for all you Patreon donors to enjoy. So you can get even more of Mike and I. If that's your thing, you're sadistic and like to punish yourself, there you go. And speaking of which, Mike, if people can't get enough of you, besides the Graveyard Shift and our Patreon page, how could they go about doing that?
Well, you can check me out at the playingwithpowerpodcast.com website, where you can find episodes of the Playing with Power podcast. It's a seminal, unofficial game magazine discussion podcast. We talk about Nintendo Power Magazine. Yep, the only way that you could really learn and beat those Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Game Boy games before the internet came along and crushed it. But we talk about the past and terrible things that are going on in the future. We kind of go all over the place, but it's primarily us talking about the player's pulse, the every section in the magazine, and it's very entertaining, and I think you will enjoy it.
Absolutely. If you're a fan of old Nintendo games, or you had a subscription to Nintendo Power back in the day, or you're just interested in what it's all about, like if it sounds like something you might want to check out, then go ahead. I think you're going to enjoy it. But that is it for us, guys. See you again next week when we do March of the Dead Part 2. Until then, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Mike.
And thank you for joining us on the Graveyard Shift. And, of course, if you just can't get enough of us, you want to treat yourself every week, then come back and see us each and every week on the Graveyard Shift. I fucked that up.
You're crashing on the outro, buddy. Pull up.
Oh my god, what are we going to do? I don't know what to say.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
I has head injury. Me bang coconut.
You put the shell on the coconut and fuck it all up.
I think I bring my damage. Okay, let's try that again.
3, 2, 1.
I got a concussion. I probably shouldn't be drinking booze. I'm so happy.
Oh my god, should I cue up the outro then?
I should not be recording when I have, head trauma.
We're so close to the ending, too.
I know, the end is near. Dawn is breaking and we just can't.
The end is near.
Okay, let's try it again. I'm good.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, I can't do this. You're going to be laughing through the whole thing.
Oh my god, you've lost all sense of professionalism. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to say. Where am I?
You can just be like, and that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us on the Graveyard Shift. Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
But anyway, that is it for us. Please come back and see us again next week when we do March of the Dead Part 2. Until then, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Mike. Please
come see us again on the Graveyard Swift.
Getting swifty in here.
Okay, do it again.
On the Graveyard Shift.
Motherfucker!
I missed the bull drops.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, one more time.
3, 2. God, this is going to be a fucking nightmare at the end. 3, 2, 1.